Watercolor technique exercises. First thing you want to do is de-stick your tape so when you peel it off your watercolor paper, it doesn't rip it to pieces. So stick it on your sleeve of your shirt or on your pants or something, just to make it a little bit less sticky. Next thing you're going to do is tape a border around the outside of your paper. You're going to go all the way around the outside, and then put 2 more on the inside, so you're roughly dividing it horizontally by 3 sections. 1 more piece going horizontal across the middle, and you end up with 6 little rectangles to paint in. Alright, here's the watercolor pan. You can use the lid later as a little palette to mix colors if you need to. And remember, you're going to tickle the paints. You're not going to jam your brush into them and wreck them. You need to have a lot of water on your brush too. So get it wet a few times and your brush will be ready to go. You should tilt the paper up so that the water runs towards you, but not all the way down. As you can see, it'll bead up along the bottom of your brush stroke. That's what you want to happen. And what you do is you get your brush loaded again and drag your brush right through that bead. And that'll bring it 1 row lower. And you keep doing it quickly before it dries or soaks in. And since it's constantly running downhill and you're constantly running your brush across, it's pulling it across evenly. And it leads you all the way down your area. So do this over and over again. Remember, you got to move kind of quickly so it doesn't dry. We're going to go all the way down to the bottom. This is called a wash. There you go. And we paint all the way off the edge of the tape. Alright, now we're going to pick another color. Get your brush wet. And remember, tickle the paint. Don't dig it in. No scooping out ice cream. And we're going to start off just like we did before. Tilt the paper and run a wet brush all the way across. This time, when you clean your brush, don't get more paint. Just run a clean, wet brush across. Then rinse your brush out and do it again and again. This will pull down the paint, but it'll be more and more diluted. This is what we want to happen. This is when you want a color to fade to the white of the paper, and it's called a gradated wash. And it gives you a nice soft edge. So that's another kind of wash you can do. The third kind is when we mix more than 1 color together. So get some clean water and brush it over that the third area, and let's do 1 more wash. We'll go back to using this kind of red, and then maybe I'll do it again. Remember, hold the page up. This time I'm going to run orange across it. So pick a different color, and when it pulls it down, it starts to gradually mix it with the color, and you don't get a harsh stripe. I did 2 more rows of orange. Now I'm going to go to yellow and run it across the bottom of the orange and pull it down, and that's what we'll finish with. This way you get very soft flowing colors and you don't get hard stripes. So when you want a color to mix, you can get the paper wet and do a color blend. Now in a new space, I want you to just draw like an oval or a circle. It doesn't have to be perfect. Get another color, get it wet, and do a blend wash of 2 colors. So here I started with orange, then I went to brown, and I'm not going horizontally, I'm just going around the outside edge while it's still wet so they blend into each other. And just let the colors do the mixing, let the water and the colors mix together on their own. And my colors are a little weak, so I'm going to hit it a little bit more. A little more brown, and a little more orange in the middle. There we go. Next, I'm going to fill in the background. I'll do another color blend. I'll start with purple. And I'll fill around the outside edges. If it mixes a little bit with it, I don't mind. I'll blend it with a little bit of blue. Just so we have a strong difference between the orange and the foreground and the background, the shape and the background. I'm using warmer colors for the foreground and cooler colors for the background. Here we go. All right, get a clean wet brush and wet another square, pick a new color, and just do a flat wash across it. Notice that since I got the page wet, I didn't have to hold the paper up, but I could have if I wanted to. When you get the page wet ahead of time, it makes it a little easier to flow the color. Now take a tissue, wad up a little tissue, clean tissue, and press it onto the paint before it dries a couple times. And this is called tissue lifting. You can use it to fix mistakes, and you can use it to make effects. All right, on the last rectangle or square here, I'm going to do another wash. This time I'm using brown. And I'm going across. Notice how when I don't tilt the paper, it's a lot sloppier. So this is going to work, but this is a much sloppier, uneven wash. Now before it dries, sprinkle some salt onto this. You have to do it before it dries. And since salt absorbs moisture, it'll suck up the water wherever it lands, and it'll suck up the paint. So leave it there to dry, and when it's all dry, you can brush it off, and it'll leave behind little flowery, light effects. Now, unfortunately, I have to fill in my gradated wash because I need another area. So I'm going to fill in the rest with more orange. And this time I'm going to drip some rubbing alcohol onto the wet paint before it dries. So here I had a little bit left over on my finger from a spill. But I also have little droppers, little squirt bottles that you can drip it on with. And that's how we are going to do it. There we go. So drip it on before the paint dries. And it pushes the paint away with almost like a tie-dye effect. So leave that to dry. Don't mix it around, just let it sit the way it is. To spatter the paint, flick it with your finger, but don't bang the brush, because it makes a mess. Now we're going to go back to the ball if it's dry. We're going to take another thin wash of paint, and we're just going to go over the top of it while it's dry. And this is glazing because the paint is transparent and you'll be able to see some of the under layers through the layer you just painted, and you can build up a really rich color that way. So what I'm doing now is I'm mixing a puddle of paint on the lid, and I'm dipping a piece of cardboard into it and stamping it. If I wanted to make fence posts or a telephone pole or something really straight, you can use a card to get a perfectly straight line. You can also push down and drag to do something like a roof. You can see part of that roof didn't come through. It has a kind of a broken effect. You can do like birch tree bark that way. It has a good effect. All right, for the next effect, I'm going to put a little drop of paint down, and before it soaks into the paper, I'm going to blow on it really hard. You can use a straw. You can roll up a little piece of paper and do the same thing, or just get close to it. So when you blow on it, it has an unpredictable spraying effect. All right, the last thing we're going to do is carefully strip the tape off of your paper. And if you did the de-sticking at the beginning, it should be just fine. And what it leaves behind are very clean edges. So you can use masking tape in your painting to protect areas and leave straight edges. So when it's all dry, you can peel it. If you do it too soon and it's still really wet, it's going to lose the effect. The water will spread. But this was practically dry, so I peeled it. So let's take a closer look at some of these effects. There's the stamping and the blowing. You can see what the alcohol was starting to do. Here's paint spattering. Here's what the salt did. The salt's all gone. I brushed the salt off. That's the effect. There's the card stamping and the glazing.